The boy's screams echo through the steel corridors. 10 years old, maybe 11. His small fists pound against the reinforced glass as the apothecary approaches with the first needle. The syringe gleams under harsh white lights. Inside, a cocktail of gene seed and synthetic hormones that will either transform him into a superhuman killing machine or kill him in the next 6 hours. His parents signed the papers yesterday, traded their son's childhood for the honor of serving the Emperor. They don't know the statistics. 90% of recruits die during the transformation process. The apothecary's servo skull hovers nearby, recording everything. Red optical sensors track the boy's vital signs as terror floods his small body. "Please," he whispers through the Vox grill. "I want to go home." The apothecary doesn't respond. Can't respond. His vocal cords were removed decades ago to eliminate emotional attachment during procedures. The needle slides into pale flesh. The boy's eyes roll back as alien DNA begins rewriting every cell in his body. Bones will shatter and regrow. Organs will multiply. His ribcage will fuse into a solid wall of calcium and ceramite. If he survives the next hour, they'll begin installing the second heart. If he survives the next day, they'll replace his eyes with targeting systems. If he survives the next month, they'll cut open his skull and implant the neural interface that will connect him directly to his power armor. But first, he has to survive this moment. The transformation serum burns through his bloodstream like liquid fire. His small body convulses against the restraints as his skeleton begins expanding. The pain is beyond human comprehension. It has to be. Because when it's over, he won't be human anymore. The apothecary checks his chronometer. 5 minutes since injection, the boy's heart rate spikes to 200 beats per minute, then 250, then it stops entirely. For 30 seconds, the monitoring equipment flatlines. Silence fills the chamber, except for the hum of life support systems. Then, impossibly, a new heartbeat appears on the scanner. Stronger, faster, inhuman. The boy's eyes snap open. They're no longer the soft brown of childhood. They're the cold yellow of a predator. But this is just the beginning of his transformation into one of the Emperor's angels of death. What happens next will make this moment seem like mercy. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, humanity clings to survival across a million worlds. The Imperium of Man stands as the last bastion against chaos, alien horrors, and the endless night between stars. But survival demands sacrifice. Every generation, children vanish from their homes. Not to war, not to disease, to something far more deliberate. They call it recruitment. The Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, need fresh blood, young minds to break, young bodies to rebuild. What follows is not conscription. It's transformation so violent, so complete, that death becomes a mercy most will never receive. This is the selection process that turns children into living weapons, where 10,000 hopefuls become a handful of survivors, where humanity itself becomes optional. The smell of incense masks the stench of fear in cathedral-sized halls. Servo skulls drift overhead, their red eyes recording every tremor, every tear. Chaplains in midnight black armor study genetic charts like butchers examining meat. Their voices echo through vaulted chambers where children wait in perfect silence. Some are volunteers, sons of nobility seeking glory. Others are taken, plucked from hive cities and feral worlds where their absence will never be questioned. All share the same fate. The Imperium has refined this process over 10 millennia. They know exactly what breaks a human mind, exactly how much pain a child can endure before madness takes hold. They know because they've done this before. Millions of times. In processing centers across the galaxy, children as young as 10 face trials designed by minds that have forgotten mercy. Their screams echo through chambers where empathy died long ago. The selection criteria are precise. Genetic markers indicating compatibility with space marine implants. Psychological profiles suggesting resilience under extreme duress. Most importantly, the capacity to abandon everything human. Because what emerges from these halls will remember their birth names like distant dreams. They'll speak of their families as strangers might discuss the dead. The Imperium calls this honor. The children call it home, until they learn better. In the cold mathematics of survival, sentiment becomes weakness, love becomes liability, and childhood becomes the first casualty of mankind's endless war. But the real horror hadn't even begun. Kalen's breath mists in the frozen air as the chaplain's voice cuts through dawn silence. 112 aspirants entered these halls. Today, we begin to separate the worthy from the dead. The testing chamber stretches before them like a cathedral of suffering. Steel walls weep condensation. The smell of old blood and machine oil hangs thick. Somewhere in the darkness, servitors hum their mechanical prayers. Kalen's hands shake. Not from cold, from knowing. The first trial is always pain. Strip, commands Sergeant Voss, his scarred face betraying nothing. Everything. Your old life ends here. One by one, the aspirants shed their clothes. Farm boys from agri-worlds, hive scum from the Undercity, noble-born children whose parents sold them for glory, all equal now in their nakedness and terror. The neural interface crown descends from the ceiling, brass and bone, wired with pain amplifiers that have tested 10,000 souls. Its weight settles on Kalen's skull like a death sentence. The machine will show us your breaking point, Voss explains, circling the aspirants like a predator. How much agony you can endure. How long before you beg for mercy. The first pulse hits like lightning through Kalen's spine. He screams, every nerve ignites. His vision whites out. The taste of copper floods his mouth as he bites through his tongue. But he doesn't fall. Beside him, Marcus collapses. Blood streams from his nose as his body convulses. The apothecary makes a mark on his data slate. Another failure. The second pulse comes harder. Kalen's knees buckle. His fingernails claw furrows in the steel floor. Every instinct screams at him to surrender, to make the torture stop. But he thinks of his sister's face, of the orc raiders who took her. He endures. Hours pass, or perhaps minutes. Time becomes meaningless when every second stretches into eternity. One by one, aspirants break. They weep. They plead. They die. Kalen remains standing. When the crown finally lifts, only 17 aspirants remain conscious. The chaplain's eyes burn with something that might be approval. Congratulations, he says, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. You have survived your first day. Kalen's legs give out. As darkness takes him, he hears Voss whisper to the apothecary. Prepare the gene seed compatibility tests, and double the pain threshold for tomorrow. But what they didn't tell the aspirants was far worse than any physical torture. Thomas felt the cold metal table against his spine. The surgical bay stretched endlessly above him, cathedral high ceilings lost in shadow. 12 boys had entered this chamber. Only he remained conscious. The apothecary's servo skull hummed overhead, red scanner light painting Thomas's chest in crimson. Each pass felt like ice crawling across his ribs. Subject exhibits acceptable pain tolerance. the apothecary noted, voice distorted through his respirator. Proceeding with primary organ implantation. Thomas tried to speak. The paralytic agent held his vocal cords frozen. The first incision opened his chest like unzipping leather. No anesthetic. The chapter believed pain built character. Steam rose from his exposed flesh in the frigid air. Memory fragments flashed, his mother's face, the village bakery, sunlight through wheat fields. The apothecary's mechadendrite arms moved with inhuman precision, peeling back muscle and bone. The secondary heart requires precise placement. The apothecary murmured to his assistant. Millimeters matter. One error and the subject dies screaming. Thomas felt the foreign organ slide into his chest cavity. Wet, warm, alien. His body convulsed as new neural pathways fired, connecting the implant to his nervous system. The pain transcended description, white-hot agony that made his vision fracture into kaleidoscope fragments. His original heart hammered against his ribs while the secondary heart found its rhythm. Ba-dum, ba-dum-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum-dum. Two hearts, two drummers playing different songs. Excellent, the apothecary said. The os modula implant next? This will hurt considerably more. Thomas's eyes widened. More? How could anything hurt more than this? The bone growth stimulator looked like a metal spider, all needle legs and injection ports. It would rewrite his skeleton, making his bones dense as ceramite. Strong enough to shatter concrete, but first it had to dissolve his existing bone structure. The injection sites burned like molten metal. Thomas felt his femur beginning to soften, his ribcage becoming pliable. His skeleton was melting from the inside. His body was no longer his own. It belonged to the chapter now, to be rebuilt in their image. Through the observation window, he glimpsed other surgical tables, other boys. Some screamed despite the paralytic. Others lay perfectly still, too still. The apothecary's next words chilled him more than the surgical bay's frozen air. Now we begin the real modifications. Thomas realized this was only the beginning. 19 more organs awaited implantation, each one more invasive than the last. But what came next would make this surgery feel like mercy. The sky burns crimson above Hive City Tertius. 10-year-old Kai presses his face against the hab block window. The glass vibrates with the thunder of descending drop pods. Space Marines. The Adeptus Astartes have come to his world. Step away from the window, his mother whispers. Her hands shake as she pulls the metal shutters closed. They're not here for sightseeing. But Kai has already seen them. Giants in midnight blue armor, each one standing 8 feet tall. Their helmets gleam like polished skulls in the hive's artificial light. They move through the undercity with purpose, not hunting criminals or Xenos, hunting children. The recruitment begins at dawn. Servo skulls drift through the hab blocks, their red scanner eyes sweeping over huddled families. They're looking for something specific, something in the blood, something in the bones, genetic markers, compatibility rates, the potential for transformation. Kai's neighbor Marcus gets selected first. 12 years old, already showing the broad shoulders and thick bones the Astartes prize. The boy doesn't resist when the Space Marine's gauntleted hand falls on his shoulder. His mother does. She throws herself at the giant, screaming, clawing at ceramite plates with fingernails that snap like twigs. The Space Marine doesn't even look down. He simply continues walking, dragging Marcus toward the transport. The woman's sobs echo through the corridor long after they're gone. Why don't they fight back? Kai asks his father. The The older man's face is gray as ash. Because they know what happens to worlds that refuse the Imperium's call. Extermination. Orbital bombardment. The complete erasure of everything they've ever known. The recruitment isn't a choice. It's a tithe paid in children's blood. By midday, 30 boys have been taken. The youngest is 8. The oldest, 14. They stand in the transport bay like livestock, their eyes wide with terror and confusion. Kai watches from the shadows as a Space Marine captain addresses the chosen. You are no longer who you were. The giant's voice booms through his vox grill. Your old lives are dead. Your families are strangers. You belong to the Emperor now. Some of the boys cry. Others stand frozen in shock. The captain continues. Most of you will die in the trials ahead. Your bodies will reject the gene seed. Your minds will shatter under the conditioning. This is acceptable. He pauses, letting the words sink in. We need only 1 in 1,000 to survive. The transport engines begin to whine. Steam hisses from cooling vents. Kai realizes he's holding his breath. Then the servo skull appears beside him, its scanner light painting his face red, and everything changes. The screaming stops abruptly. Kale's legs give out. His knees strike the metal grating with a wet crack. Blood pools beneath him, mixing sweat and tears into crimson mud. The chaplain's voice echoes through the testing chamber. Pain is the currency of transformation. 50 boys entered this room 6 hours ago. 17 remain conscious. The rest lie motionless, their dreams of becoming Space Marines bleeding out through shattered bones and torn flesh. Kale forces his head up. The neural interface crown weighs 40 pounds. Its metal spikes have burrowed deep into his skull, mapping every nerve ending. Each pulse sends lightning through his brain. The Imperium demands perfection. The chaplain continues, his skull-faced helmet gleaming under harsh lights. Your bodies must be broken before they can be rebuilt. The boy beside Kale convulses. White foam bubbles from his mouth. His eyes roll back, showing only bloodshot whites. The servitors drag him away without ceremony. 16 now. Kale's vision blurs. The testing chamber becomes a kaleidoscope of agony. He remembers his village, his mother's face, the Imperial recruiters promising glory. They never mentioned this. The pain amplifier increases. Kale's nervous system catches fire. Every muscle fiber tears itself apart and rebuilds. His bones crack and fuse stronger. His organs shut down and restart. This is just the beginning. 3 more boys collapse. Their hearts simply stop. The chaplain marks their names in a leather tome, adding them to 10,000 years of failed aspirants. 13 survivors. Kyle tastes copper and ozone. His enhanced hearing picks up whispered prayers from the other boys. Some beg for death. Others call for their mothers. The chaplain removes his helmet. Beneath lies a face more machine than man. Cables snake from his eye sockets. His jaw has been replaced with adamantium. You think this is cruelty? He says, his voice a mechanical rasp. But mercy would be sending you home unchanged. Kale understands now. This isn't recruitment, it's metamorphosis. The weak die here. The strong emerge as something beyond human. Something terrible and necessary in a galaxy that devours the innocent. Another boy falls. 12 remain. The chaplain approaches Kale's station. His metal fingers trace the neural crown's connections. Your pain tolerance is exceptional, he observes. But tolerance isn't enough. He adjusts a dial. Kale's world explodes into white-hot agony. His spine arches impossibly. His screams shatter the chamber's reinforced glass. But he doesn't break. The chaplain smiles with mechanical lips. Good, because the real trials haven't even begun. The apothecary's chamber smells of antiseptic and burning flesh. Cale lies strapped to the surgical table, his 12-year-old body trembling despite the sedatives coursing through his veins. The cold metal bites into his wrists. Above him, servo skulls hover like mechanical vultures, their red eyes recording every detail. The secondary heart comes first. Apothecary Thane announces to his assistants. His voice echoes through the vox grill of his skull-faced helm. It must anchor before we proceed to the os modula. The drill whirs to life. Cale's screams echo off the stone walls as the bone saw cuts through his ribcage. The pain is beyond description, a white-hot agony that makes his vision blur. But he cannot pass out. The stimulants won't let him. Through the haze of torment, he watches Thane lift the secondary heart from its preservation tank. The organ pulses with artificial life, cables snaking from its surface like metallic veins. It's the size of his fist, glistening with biomechanical fluids. Hold still, Initiate, Thane commands as he positions the organ inside Cale's chest cavity. Movement causes rejection. The secondary heart slides into place with a wet, sucking sound. Immediately, Kyle feels his pulse change, two rhythms fighting for dominance inside his chest. His body convulses as the organ begins to integrate with his cardiovascular system. Blood streams down the table's drainage channels. Vitals holding, reports an assistant. Neural activity stable. But Cale isn't stable. He's drowning in sensation. The foreign heartbeat hammering against his ribs, the taste of copper flooding his mouth, the smell of his own burning flesh as the apothecary cauterizes the incision. He thinks of his mother's face, her last words before the recruiters took him. Be strong, my son. Strong. The word feels hollow now as Thane reaches for the next implant, a writhing mass of neural tissue that will become his catalepsian node, the organ that will steal his dreams forever. This one goes into the brainstem, Thane explains to his students. Precision is critical. 1 millimeter off and we lose another recruit. Another recruit. Cale realizes he's not the first to lie on this table. The stains in the metal grooves tell stories of boys who didn't survive. The drill moves toward his skull. Cale closes his eyes and prays to the Emperor for strength. But as the bit touches bone, he wonders if the Emperor can even hear him anymore. Then Thane pauses, his augmetic eye focusing on something in Cale's brain scan. Curious, the apothecary whispers. This one's different. But different how? The hypno-conditioning chambers smell like burnt copper and ozone. Kalen lies strapped to the neural throne, electrodes piercing his skull like silver thorns. The machine hums with the patience of a predator. Beginning memory restructuring, the apothecary announces. His voice echoes in the sterile chamber. The first wave hits like molten metal poured into Kalen's brain. His childhood dissolves. The face of his mother, gone. The taste of his favorite meal, erased. Every birthday, every friend, every moment that made him human, burns away in digital fire. The hypno-indoctrination feeds him new memories. He remembers battles he never fought, worlds he never saw, brothers who died centuries before his birth. The machine plants loyalty deeper than bone, harder than adamantium. Subject shows resistance. A servo skull reports, its red eye scanning Kalen's convulsing form. The apothecary increases the neural pressure. Kalen's screams echo off the chamber walls. But inside his mind, something worse than pain unfolds. He watches himself forget his own name. His personality fractures like glass under a hammer. New thoughts flood in. The Emperor's glory, the chapter's honor. Hatred for Xenos and heretics burns through his synapses like acid, memory death proceeding normally. The apothecary notes with clinical satisfaction. The boy who entered this chamber is dying. Not his body. That will be rebuilt stronger. But everything that made him unique, everything that made him him, bleeds away through neural pathways. Hours pass, or days. Time has no meaning in the conditioning throne. Kalen's eyes open, but they're different now. Colder, emptier. The warm brown of his youth has hardened into the pitiless gaze of a weapon. State your name, the apothecary commands. I am... Kalen's voice cracks. For a moment, his old self surfaces, gasping for air in an ocean of artificial memories. Then the conditioning reasserts itself. I am Initiate Kalen of the Crimson Fists. I serve the Emperor. I know no fear. The apothecary nods. Another successful reconstruction. But deep in the neural pathways, fragments of the old Kalen hide like survivors in bombed ruins. Tiny pieces of his humanity, buried but not destroyed. The machine couldn't kill everything. Not yet. As the restraints release and Kalen staggers to his feet, one question burns in the deepest corner of his reconstructed mind. What happens when those buried memories start to surface? Kale's screams echo through the surgical chamber as the first implant tears into his chest cavity. The apothecary's servo skull hovers overhead, recording every convulsion, every drop of blood that spatters the sterile walls. The progenoid glands must bond with living tissue. The apothecary explains to his assistant, voice clinical despite the horror unfolding below. Death during implantation purifies the gene seed for the next candidate. Kale's vision blurs as alien organs slide beneath his ribs. The secondary heart, a fist-sized mass of engineered muscle, begins its first tentative beats. Thump, 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 thump. Two rhythms now, human and transhuman, fighting for dominance in his chest. The osmodula comes next. Kyle watches in drugged fascination as his bones begin to thicken, calcium deposits forming like coral growths beneath his skin. His ribcage expands with wet cracking sounds. His childhood friend Marcus lies on the adjacent table, silent now. The Biscopia implant had rejected 3 hours ago. Black veins spider across his pale skin like ink in water. Failure rate for this batch, 67%. The servo skull announces in its tinny voice. Kale tries to speak, to ask about Marcus, but his throat burns. The catalepsian node behind his ear pulses with electric fire, rewiring his sleep patterns. He'll never dream naturally again, never be fully human again. The apothecary leans closer, his augmetic eye whirring as it focuses. The Laraman's organ is taking hold. Excellent. Your blood will clot in seconds now, boy. Wounds that would kill mortals will barely slow you, but at what cost? Kale's enhanced hearing picks up whispered conversations from the observation deck above. Chapter masters discussing success rates, acceptable losses, the mathematics of transformation. Each implant rewrites your genetic code. The apothecary continues, inserting the neuroglottis into Kale's throat. You'll taste poison in the air, track enemies by their sweat. Your tongue will become a weapon of analysis. The taste of copper floods Kyle's mouth. Then something else. Fear. He can taste the apothecary's assistant's terror, sharp and acidic. The man knows something. Kale's new hearts pound in unison as the final implant slides home. The melanchromic organ nestles against his spine like a sleeping serpent. Congratulations, neophyte, the apothecary says, stepping back. You've survived the first 19 implants. Kale's enhanced vision catches the assistant's pale face. The man's lips move silently, counting. 19, but there should be 20. The apothecary's smile reveals sharpened teeth. Now we begin the real test. The screaming echoes through the fortress monastery's deepest chambers. Cale's body convulses against the surgical restraints. Steel cables bite into his wrists as the apothecary's servo skull hovers overhead, its red scanner painting his chest in crimson light. Subject exhibits acceptable pain tolerance. The apothecary notes, his voice mechanical through the respirator. Proceeding with secondary heart implantation, the drill whirs to life. Cale's vision blurs as the diamond-tipped bit pierces his ribcage. The smell of burning bone fills his nostrils. His teeth crack from clenching as the apothecary's augmetic hands work inside his chest cavity. This is the third organ implantation in as many days. First came the secondary lung, a writhing mass of bioengineered tissue that felt like swallowing molten lead. Then the multi-lung, grafted beneath his primary respiratory system like a parasite made of steel and flesh. Now the second heart. The Emperor protects. Cale whispers through blood-frothed lips. But the Emperor feels very far away. The apothecary's servo arms extend from his backpack, each one tipped with a different surgical instrument. Bone saws, flesh welders, gene seed injectors that gleam like silver syringes. Your body is rejecting the implants, the apothecary observes. Fascinating. Cale's skin burns with fever. His new organs pulse against each other, fighting for space inside his expanding ribcage. Every heartbeat is agony. Two hearts trying to find the same rhythm, failing, starting again. The pain is beyond description. It's the pain of becoming something inhuman, initiating neuroglottis implantation, the apothecary announces. The drill moves toward Cale's throat. He tries to scream, but only blood emerges. The neuroglottis, the organ that will let him taste poison, analyze threats through saliva, slides down his esophagus like a living snake. Cale's body arches against the restraints. His bones are lengthening. His muscle fibers tear and regrow stronger. His skull expands to accommodate the enhanced brain chemistry flooding his neural pathways. This is what they never tell the aspirants. The recruitment videos show glory, honor, service to the Emperor. They don't show the surgical tables, the rejection rates, the boys who die screaming as their bodies tear themselves apart from the inside. Os modula activation commencing, the apothecary continues. Cale feels his skeleton begin to change. His femurs crack and extend. His ribcage expands like a bellows. His spine elongates vertebra by vertebra, each pop sending lightning through his nervous system. He is becoming a space marine, or he is dying. The line between transformation and death grows thinner with each passing hour. The apothecary's scanner beeps urgently. Curious, he murmurs, leaning closer. Your gene seed compatibility is unusual. But what he discovered in Cale's blood would change everything. The neural interface burns like molten metal against Cale's skull. Cold ceramite cables snake into his brainstem. Each connection sends lightning through his nervous system. The apothecary's servo skull hovers inches from his face, red sensors recording every neural pathway. Subject displays optimal cortical resistance. The machine priest intones. Cale can taste copper and ozone. His vision fractures into data streams. Numbers cascade behind his eyelids, targeting calculations, weapon specifications, tactical doctrines. Information that would take decades to learn floods his mind in seconds. The pain is exquisite. Memories of home flicker and fade. His mother's face becomes pixelated static. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery dissolves into recycled air and incense. Everything human about him burns away like chaff. The mind must be emptied before it can be filled. Chaplain Morteus whispers. Cale tries to scream. His vocal cords are paralyzed by the neural suppressors. Tears stream down his cheeks as childhood laughter becomes tactical chatter. His first kiss transforms into weapon maintenance protocols. The machine priest adjusts a dial. Agony explodes through Cale's temporal lobe. Installing combat doctrines. Codex Astartes, chapters 7 through 15. Strategies pour into his consciousness like acid. How to breach fortress walls, where to place explosives for maximum casualties, the 17 ways to kill with a combat knife. Each lesson carved into his synapses with surgical precision. His hands twitch against the restraints. Muscle memory he's never earned floods his nervous system. He knows how to field strip a bolter blindfolded, how to calculate trajectory in zero gravity, how to strangle a man with bare hands, knowledge without experience, skills without soul. Neural integration at 60%. The servo skull reports. Cale's personality fragments like broken glass. The boy who loved astronomy becomes a tactical genius who sees only firing solutions in the stars. The child who collected insects transforms into a killer who knows the weak points of every Xeno species. Sweat mingles with coolant fluid on the operating table. The smell of burning neurons fills the chamber. His brain rewrites itself in real time, each synapse rebuilt for war. 80% integration achieved. The last fragments of his old self cling desperately to consciousness. A memory of his sister's laugh, the warmth of sunlight on his face, the taste of sweet fruit from the market. Then the final upload begins. But as the machine prepares to erase the last traces of the boy named Cale, something unexpected happens. The surgical blade hovers millimeters from Kai's throat, not to kill, to transform. Apothecary Vex studies the recruit's pulse through the carotid artery. 140 beats per minute. Fear mixed with anticipation. This is where most break. Vex whispers, his augmetic eye whirring as it focuses. Not from pain, from understanding. Kai's restraints bite into his wrists. The operating slab beneath him radiates cold through his spine. Around the chamber, servo skulls drift like mechanical vultures, recording every heartbeat, every scream. The progenoid glands. Vex continues, lifting a writhing organic mass from a stasis field. Harvested from our fallen brothers. Their genetic legacy lives within this flesh. The thing pulses, wet, alive. Kai watches it contract and expand, realizing what he's seeing. The compressed DNA of 1,000 space marines. Warriors who died so he might become something more than human, or something less. You asked what recruitment truly costs, Vex says, positioning the gland against Kai's neck. Your humanity dies here. What emerges, that remains to be seen. The first incision opens like a crimson smile. Kai's vision blurs as foreign genetic material floods his bloodstream. His bones begin to ache, not breaking, but growing, expanding. The calcium deposits that will eventually make him bulletproof start forming beneath his skin. He tastes copper, smells ozone, feels his heart stutter as it prepares to split into 2 chambers. Some recruits beg us to stop, Vex observes, making another precise cut. Others laugh. The laughing ones worry me most. Through the surgical lights, Kai glimpses other tables. Other recruits in various stages of transformation. One boy's ribcage has been cracked open, his organs rearranged like puzzle pieces. He's still conscious, still breathing, still human enough to suffer. The Emperor protects. Kai whispers, the words becoming a prayer against the agony. Vex pauses. The Emperor demands, Protection is what you'll provide others if you survive the next 72 hours. Another gland. This one slides beneath Kai's skull, nestling against his brainstem. Suddenly, he can hear the apothecary's thoughts, feel the servo-skull's machine spirits, sense something vast and golden watching from beyond the stars. Phase 1 complete. Vex announces to the chamber. Prepare the bone cement and muscle grafts. Kai tries to speak, but finds his vocal cords have been severed and rebuilt. When sound finally emerges, it's deeper, inhuman, the voice of something that was once a child named Kai. But what terrified him most wasn't the pain or the transformation. It was how right it felt. The screaming stops, not because the pain ends, because neophyte Kale's vocal cords have simply given out. The apothecary's servo skull hovers inches from the boy's chest, its bone-white surface gleaming under surgical lumens. Steam rises from cauterized flesh as the final neural interface ports are sealed into living tissue. The black carapace is not an implant. Apothecary Voss intones, his voice echoing through the sterile chamber. It is a second skin, a marriage of flesh and machine that will define every moment of your remaining existence. Kale's body convulses as thousands of fiber-bundled nerves integrate with the bioplastic mesh spreading beneath his skin like black lightning. The carapace moves, alive, seeking connection points along his spine, his shoulders, the base of his skull. The smell of burning bone fills the air. You asked to serve the Emperor, Voss continues, his augmetic eye focusing on readouts that dance across Kale's vital signs. But service requires sacrifice. The black carapace will make you something more than human, and something less. The neural mesh reaches Kyle's brain stem. Suddenly, he can feel everything. The chamber's temperature drops, the humidity levels, the electromagnetic signatures of every piece of equipment. His consciousness expands beyond his body, touching systems he cannot see. I can feel the ship, Kale whispers, his voice raw and broken. Yes, Voss replies, and for the first time, something like satisfaction creeps into his tone. You feel the litany of Fury's machine spirit, every bolt, every rivet, every prayer seal carved into her hull. This is what it means to be Astartes. But as the connection deepens, Kyle feels something else. Older, darker. Memories that are not his own flood through the neural pathways. Previous wearers of this same carapace. Their deaths. Their final moments as bolter rounds tore through their bodies, as chainswords carved through their flesh. The black carapace remembers everything. The machine spirit stores the experiences of all who have worn it. Voss explains, watching Kale's eyes widen in horror. You carry their victories, their failures, their final screams. Kale tries to speak, but the voices of the dead drown out his own thoughts. Warriors who died in the mud of forgotten worlds. Brothers who fell to the corruption of chaos. Heroes who lived for centuries only to die alone in the void. This is the price of immortality, Voss whispers, leaning close. You wanted to serve forever. But forever means carrying the weight of every space marine who came before you. The boy's augmented heart pounds against ribs that will never break. But whose memories will he carry when his time comes? The screaming starts at dawn. Brother Sergeant Voss watches through reinforced glass as 17-year-old Matthias convulses on the surgical table. Steel cables snake from his skull like mechanical parasites. The boy's eyes roll back, showing only white. His brain is rejecting the interface, the tech adept announces, servo skulls hovering around the operating theater. cortical pressure rising beyond safe parameters. Matthias was a gang leader from the Underhive. 3 weeks ago, he commanded 40 men through Tertia City's toxic sewers. Now he can't control his own limbs. The neural conditioning chamber fills with the smell of ozone and burning flesh. Each pulse of electricity rewrites his mind, carving new pathways for superhuman reflexes. His nervous system must learn to process information at inhuman speeds, or it will kill him. Increase the neural inhibitors, Voss orders. He's seen this procedure 700 times. Only 1 in 3 aspirants survives the interface implantation. Matthias's spine arches impossibly high. Blood streams from his nose, pooling on the metal table. The machines monitoring his vitals scream warnings in binary cant. The boy's memories flash across the neural monitors. His sister's face, the taste of reclaimed water, the weight of his first laser gun, all of it being systematically cataloged, filed, and locked away. Space Marines don't need childhood memories. They need tactical data. Sir, his hippocampus is hemorrhaging, the tech adept reports. Mechanical fingers dance across runic keyboards. We're losing cognitive function in sectors 7 through 12. Voss steps closer to the glass. Matthias's eyes suddenly snap open, pupils dilated to black pools. For a moment, the boy stares directly at him. There's nothing human left in that gaze. The neural interface finally sinks with a wet, electric crack. Matthias goes rigid, then completely still. His breathing slows to 4 breaths per minute. His heart rate drops to 15 beats. Perfect superhuman efficiency. Integration successful. The tech adept announces. Subject Matthias, 7-7 Alpha, is ready for combat conditioning. Voss nods grimly. The boy who entered this chamber no longer exists. In his place lies something stronger, faster, and infinitely more deadly. But as the restraints release and Matthias sits up with mechanical precision, Voss notices something troubling. The aspirant's hands are shaking, not from pain or fear, from rage. Something in the neural conditioning had gone wrong. And tomorrow, they would discover exactly what. The smell hits you first, burning flesh mixed with sacred oils. You stand naked in the sanctum, your scarred body trembling despite the heat radiating from the forge altars. The power armor waits on the ceremonial rack, black ceramite plates that gleam like beetle shells under the flickering candlelight. This is where boys die. Chaplain Mordeus whispers, his skull-faced helmet inches from your ear. And legends are born. The first plate touches your chest. The neural interface cables snake into the ports surgically implanted along your spine weeks ago. You bite down hard as the connections fuse with your nervous system. Pain explodes through every nerve ending. Your vision goes white, then red. The armor's machine spirit speaks to you in binary screams that your enhanced brain somehow understands. It's angry, hungry. It wants to know if you're worthy. The gauntlets slide over your hands. Each finger joint locks with a wet clicking sound as biomechanical sensors merge with your enhanced bones. You can feel the armor's weight, nearly a ton of ceramite and adamantium. But your new physiology bears it like silk. Breathe, Mordeus commands. Let it taste your soul. The helmet descends. The world transforms. Suddenly you can see heat signatures through the walls. Your enhanced hearing picks up conversations 3 floors below. The armor's targeting systems overlay your vision with threat assessments and ammunition counts. But something else floods your mind. Memories that aren't yours. You see through the eyes of Brother Thaddeus, the armor's previous wearer. His final moments flash before you, Xeno's claws tearing through his chest, his last breath fogging the helmet's visor as he whispered the Emperor's name. The armor remembers everything, every battle, every death, every moment of glory and horror. The machine spirit has accepted you, Mordius says, but his voice sounds different now, filtered through the helmet's vox grill, mechanical and cold. You try to speak. The words come out as a bass rumble that makes the floor vibrate. I am ready to serve. But as you take your first steps in full battle plate, servo motors whining with each movement, you realize something terrifying. The armor doesn't just enhance your body, it's changing your mind. Thoughts that felt like your own moments ago now seem foreign, distant. The boy you were is fading, replaced by something harder, colder, more useful. Mordius watches you with satisfaction. Perfect integration, he murmurs into his data slate. But what he didn't tell you was this. The armor remembers everything, including how Brother Thaddeus really died. Brother Sergeant Voss stands before the last 7 aspirants. They've survived the gene seed implantation, the hypno-indoctrination, the combat trials that killed 43 others. But this final test strips away everything they think they know about brotherhood. You will enter the chamber alone, Voss announces, his voice echoing off ceramite walls. Inside waits another aspirant, one of your brothers. The smell of incense can't mask the metallic tang of dried blood. Only one emerges as a space marine. Aspirant Kale's hands shake. The boy beside him, Jorik, who shared rations during the death march, goes pale as parchment. They've trained together for 3 years, bled together, saved each other's lives. Now the chapter demands they kill each other. This is madness, Jorik whispers. Voss hears everything. Madness? Or necessity? The sergeant's scarred face shows no emotion. A space marine fights alone when his brothers fall, dies alone when the Emperor commands. If you cannot sacrifice everything, even each other, how can you sacrifice yourself for humanity? Kyle remembers his village burning. Orc raiders butchering his family while he hid like a coward. He joined the chapter to become something more than human. Something capable of preventing that horror. But at what cost? The strong survive, Voss continues. The weak become servitors or corpses. The chamber door grinds open. Darkness waits beyond. Kale steps forward first. His boots echo against cold stone. Inside, a single lumen casts harsh shadows. 2 weapons rest on pedestals, a combat knife and a bolt pistol. Footsteps behind him. Jorik enters, breathing hard. They face each other across 3 meters of killing ground. I won't do this, Jorik says. Tears streak his dirt-stained cheeks. Kale's hand hovers over the knife. Then you'll die anyway. They'll make us both servitors. Better than becoming a monster. We're already monsters. We just choose what kind. The door seals shut with a hydraulic hiss. No observers. No witnesses. Just 2 boys who dreamed of becoming heroes. Kale grabs the knife. Its weight feels wrong in his palm. Jorik reaches for the bolt pistol. They pause, weapons raised, brotherhood dying between them. Then Kale notices something impossible. Both weapons are empty. But the real test wasn't about killing each other. Kale's body trembles against the cold metal table. The operating chamber reeks of antiseptic and ozone. Servo skulls drift overhead, their red eyes recording every moment of what's about to unfold. The apothecary's voice cuts through the sterile air like a blade. This is the final transformation. The black carapace will either make you a true space marine or kill you. Kyle stares at the ceiling, counting the scars from previous surgeries. 19 operations. 19 chances to die. This is number 20, The black carapace writhes in its containment vessel. A living membrane of bioengineered tissue, black as the void between stars. It pulses with its own heartbeat, waiting to bond with human flesh. The pain will be unlike anything you've experienced. The apothecary continues, his augmetic eye whirring as it focuses. The carapace must integrate with every nerve ending, every muscle fiber. It will rewrite your nervous system. Kyle's throat burns as he swallows. Around him, machines hum with anticipation. The air tastes metallic, charged with electricity. The first incision opens his chest like a flower blooming in reverse. Blood pools in the surgical tray, steam rising from its warmth. Kyle's vision blurs as the apothecary's hands work inside his ribcage. Beginning implantation. The black carapace slides into the wound with a wet, organic sound. Immediately, Kyle's body convulses. Every nerve screams as the alien tissue spreads beneath his skin like liquid fire. The membrane crawls along his spine, seeking connection points. Where it touches, flesh burns and rebuilds itself. Kyle's back arches off the table as the carapace finds his spinal column. Connection. Electrical fire races through his nervous system. His vision explodes into white-hot agony. The carapace speaks to his brain in a language older than humanity, teaching him the sacred interface between flesh and ceramite. Kyle's screams echo off the chamber walls. But beneath the pain, something else grows. Power. The promise of becoming more than human. The apothecary watches the bio-readings with clinical detachment. Heart rate spiking, neural activity off the charts. Brain chemistry rewriting itself in real time. Fascinating, he murmurs. The subject's pain threshold is extraordinary. Hours pass, or perhaps minutes. Time means nothing when your body is being rebuilt from the inside out. The black carapace settles into its new home, forming neural pathways that shouldn't exist. Finally, blessed unconsciousness takes him. When Kale awakens, the world feels different. His skin tingles with new sensitivity. He can sense the machines around him, feel their electronic heartbeats. The apothecary leans over him, a rare smile creasing his ancient features. Congratulations, brother. You are no longer human. But as Kale tries to speak, he realizes something terrible has gone wrong. Kale stands before the sacred vault. The smell of blessed oils and incense burns his nostrils. 23 aspirants entered the trials. Only he remains. The chaplain's servo skull hovers nearby, recording everything. Its red eye never blinks. You think you've earned this, the chaplain whispers. You think surviving makes you worthy. The vault door slides open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, suspended in consecrated light, hangs his power armor, Mark 7. Aquila pattern, ceramite plates blessed by the Emperor himself. Kyle's breath catches. The armor is beautiful, terrifying, alive. Touch it, the chaplain commands. Kale reaches out. His fingertips brush the chest plate. Pain explodes through his skull. Not physical pain, something deeper. Visions flood his mind. He sees himself in battle, crushing Xenos beneath his boots, purging heretics with bolter fire. But there's something else, something the chaplain isn't telling him. In the visions, he's not alone. Other space marines fight beside him. Their faces are familiar, too familiar. Do you see them? The chaplain asks, studying Kale's expression. Kale nods, unable to speak. The faces in his visions, they're the other aspirants. The ones who died in the trials, Marcus, Theron, all of them. The armor remembers, the chaplain explains. Every warrior who wore it, every death, every victory. Kyle's hand trembles against the ceramite. The metal feels warm. hungry. They're still here, he whispers. Of course they are. Did you think death would release them from service? The chaplain steps closer. His breath smells like burnt flesh and sacred oils. The armor chooses its wearer. But the wearer becomes part of something larger, something eternal. Kyle tries to pull his hand away. The armor won't let him. The ceramite begins to flow, like liquid metal. It spreads up his arm, covering his skin. No, not covering, merging. Welcome to the Brotherhood, the chaplain says. Welcome to immortality. The armor continues its spread. Kyle feels his individuality slipping away, his thoughts mixing with others. Marcus is there, laughing, screaming. Theron whispers secrets in languages Kyle doesn't know. A dozen other voices join the chorus, all the warriors who came before. We are Legion, they say in unison. We are one. Kale opens his mouth to scream, but the voice that emerges isn't his own. It's theirs, all of theirs. The chaplain smiles. Now you understand the true price of becoming a space marine. But as the armor completes its fusion, Kale realizes something the chaplain doesn't know. Something is wrong with this armor. Something dark. The previous wearers didn't die in glorious battle. They were murdered by their own brothers. Kalen's hands trembled as he gripped the ceremonial blade. The chapter master's voice echoed through the marble chamber. Today, you choose between the boy you were and the Astartes you will become. Before him knelt another aspirant, Matthias, the same boy who had shared rations during the hunger trials, who had pulled Kalen from the ice when hypothermia nearly claimed him, who had whispered prayers to the Emperor when the pain became unbearable. Now Matthias wore the black hood of failure. He attempted to flee during the night. The chaplain intoned, "Cowardice is a cancer that spreads." Kalen's throat burned with unspoken words. Matthias hadn't fled. He'd tried to help another aspirant who was dying from infected wounds. Kalen had seen it happen, but speaking would mean joining Matthias beneath the blade. "Execute him," the chapter master commanded. "Prove your loyalty transcends mortal bonds." The weapon felt impossibly heavy. Its edge gleamed like liquid starlight. Matthias raised his head. His eyes held no anger, only understanding. "Do it, brother," he whispered. "One of us must survive to serve." The chamber held its breath. Incense smoke curled between ancient banners bearing the names of 10,000 martyrs. Each had faced this same choice. Kalen thought of his sister's smile, his mother's lullabies. The warmth of home he would never feel again. All of it had to die here. He raised the blade. Mattis closed his eyes and began reciting the litany of sacrifice. His voice never wavered. "The Emperor protects," Matthias breathed. "The Emperor protects." Kalen replied. The blade fell. Silence consumed the chamber like a living thing. Blood pooled on consecrated stone, mixing with the ashes of countless other aspirants who had knelt here before. The chapter master nodded slowly. "You understand now? A space marine serves humanity, not individuals. The needs of billions outweigh the life of one." Kalen's reflection stared back from the crimson blade. The boy who had entered this chamber was gone. Something harder had taken his place. "Welcome to the Brotherhood, battle brother," the chaplain said. But as Kalen looked down at Matthias's still form, he wondered if this was truly brotherhood, or if he had just murdered the last piece of his humanity. The chapter master smiled. "Now comes your real education." Kyle's reflection stared back from polished ceramite. 20 years had passed since the chaplain dragged him from the underhive. The boy who once scavenged corpses for scraps was gone. In his place stood something else entirely. The mirror showed a giant wrapped in power armor that hummed with barely contained energy. Servo motors whispered as he flexed fingers that could crush a man's skull like an egg. His face had changed beyond recognition. Bone ridges jutted from his brow. His jaw could bite through steel cable. When he smiled, rows of ceramic teeth gleamed like daggers. The scars told stories of transformation, a thin line across his throat marked where they'd installed his third lung. The raised bumps along his spine showed where the black carapace had fused with his nervous system. His chest bore the ritual scarification of his chapter, the crimson fists. But the eyes remained the same. Still that feral hunger from the depths. Still that desperate need to prove himself worthy. Brother Cale. Sergeant Thane's voice crackled through the vox. Report to the armory. We have received new orders. Cale turned from the mirror. Each step thundered against the deck plating. His enhanced senses picked up everything. The ozone smell of plasma conduits, the distant hum of the ship's engines, the heartbeats of serfs scurrying through the corridors. He was no longer human. The armory buzzed with activity. Battle brothers checked bolt rifles with mechanical precision. The air tasted of blessed oils and sanctified ammunition. Sergeant Thane stood before a tactical display, showing a world wreathed in smoke. Cities burned like funeral pyres across the surface. Rebellion on Mordian 7th, Thane announced. Heretics have declared independence from the Emperor's light. They've murdered the planetary governor and his entire household. Cale felt his secondary heart begin to beat faster. The combat stimulants in his bloodstream responded to the promise of violence. The local PDF has been corrupted, Thane continued. Chaos cults spread like cancer through the population. Our mission is simple. Purge the heretics. Show no mercy. The words hit Cale like a physical blow, Mordian 7th. He knew that world. It was where his sister had been sent as a factory worker 15 years ago, where she'd written him letters about her new life, her husband, her children. Letters that had stopped coming 3 months ago. But the real horror hadn't even begun. Cale's body lies motionless on the surgical slab. Cold metal bites into his spine as servo skulls hover overhead, their red eyes scanning every inch of exposed flesh. The apothecary's voice cuts through the sterile air like a blade. This is where we separate the worthy from the dead. Needles pierce Kyle's skin in perfect geometric patterns. Each puncture burns like molten iron, mapping out connection points across his torso and limbs. The black carapace, a living synthetic skin, waits in its biotank. It writhes. The carapace will bond with your nervous system, the apothecary explains, lifting the writhing mass with surgical clamps. It will become part of you, or it will reject you completely. Kyle watches the thing pulse with alien life. Veins of dark matter snake through its surface like corrupted blood vessels. This isn't just armor interface technology. This is something else entirely. The first contact sends lightning through every nerve. The carapace spreads across his chest like living oil, seeking the neural ports carved into his flesh. Kyle's vision blurs as foreign thoughts whisper at the edges of his mind. We are many. We are one. We hunger. His heart hammers against ribs that no longer feel entirely his own. The carapace burrows deeper, threading itself through muscle and bone with surgical precision. Each connection point flares white-hot as synthetic nerves fuse with human tissue. The apothecary monitors vital signs with clinical detachment. Rejection rate is 30%. Those who fail become servitors, their minds repurposed. Kyle tries to speak but only manages a strangled gasp. The carapace has reached his spine now, wrapping around vertebrae like a parasitic embrace. His body temperature plummets as foreign biochemistry floods his bloodstream. Memories that aren't his own flash behind his eyes. Battlefield soaked in alien blood. The screams of dying worlds. The endless hunger of something vast and patient. The carapace remembers, whispers the apothecary. Every warrior who wore it before. Every death. Every victory. Kyle's consciousness fragments as the integration reaches critical mass. He can feel other minds pressing against his own, the ghosts of fallen space marines trapped within the living armor. They're all still here, all still screaming. The surgical chamber fills with the stench of burned flesh and ozone. Warning klaxons blare as Kale's body convulses against the restraints. Blood pools beneath the table as the carapace completes its terrible work. Then silence. Kale's eyes snap open, but they're no longer entirely human. The pupils have elongated, taking on an almost reptilian cast. The apothecary smiles for the first time. Welcome to immortality, brother. But the real horror hadn't even begun. The boy who entered the hypno-indoctrination chamber still remembered his mother's voice. The boy who emerged would not. Kyle's wrists ached against the restraints as the servo skull descended. Its crimson optics pulsed like dying stars. The metal was cold against his temples. So cold it burned. Subject 847 prepared for memory conditioning, the apothecary announced. His voice echoed in the sterile chamber. The hypno-indoctrination process would take 72 hours. 72 hours of having his mind stripped bare and rebuilt. Every childhood memory, every moment of weakness, every trace of the boy he once was. All of it would be burned away. The first needle pierced his skull with surgical precision. Kyle screamed. Not from pain. The anesthetics handled that. He screamed because he could feel his memories dissolving. His sister's laughter faded first, then his father's calloused hands teaching him to carve wood. The hypnocaster began its work. Ancient battle hymns flooded his consciousness. The names of fallen heroes carved themselves into his synapses. Tactical doctrines overwrote his dreams. "The Emperor protects," he whispered, though he couldn't remember learning those words. Around him, dozens of other recruits underwent the same process. Some wept. Others had already gone silent, their minds too broken to resist. The servo skull injected combat stimulants directly into his brainstem. His vision blurred red. Images flashed, xenos, horrors, heretical symbols, the faces of humanity's enemies. Each image burned deeper than the last. His childhood home became a distant echo. His mother's face, what did she look like? The harder he tried to remember, the more it hurt. Resistance detected in memory engrams, the apothecary noted clinically. Increasing suppression protocols, the pain intensified. Kyle's back arched against the restraints. His fingernails drew blood from his palms, but something fought back. Deep in his mind, a small voice whispered his real name. Not the designation they'd given him, his actual name, spoken by someone who loved him. The machines detected the anomaly immediately. Subject showing irregular neural patterns, the servo skull reported. Recommend immediate memory purge. The apothecary's augmetic eye whirred as it focused on Kale's convulsing form. A thin smile played at his lips. Fascinating. This one has unusual mental resilience. He reached for a different instrument, one that glowed with malevolent energy. Let's see how long that lasts. But as the device powered up, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The smell hits first: ozone and incense, machine oil and something else, something organic. The power armor hangs before you like a steel god skeleton. 7 feet of ceramite and adamantium. Each plate bears the scars of 1,000 battles. Your new skin, the tech marine whispers. His voice carries reverence and warning. The neural interface cables writhe like serpents, seeking, hungry. They've been waiting for you since the moment you first bled on Fenris. Since that terrified child ran from the wolves. Remember him? That boy who thought he was being rescued? The first cable finds your spine. Cold metal piercing warm flesh. The sensation explodes through your nervous system. Not pain, something beyond pain. The armor tasting your thoughts, your enhanced muscles scream as the suit's weight settles. 800 pounds of war machine. But your body accepts it, craves it. The gene seed has prepared you for this marriage of flesh and steel. The helmet seals with a hiss. Suddenly, you see everything. Heat signatures, tactical overlays, target acquisition systems painting the world in crosshairs and kill zones. But something else floods your vision. Memories, not yours. The armor remembers every battle, every death, every moment of glory and horror. Brother Maximus, who wore this suit for 3 centuries. You feel his final breath as tyrannid claws pierced his heart. The machine spirit whispers, ancient, hungry. It's been waiting so long for a new host, a new killer to guide. Do you hear it? The tech marine asks. His augmetic eye glows red in the chamber's dim light. You do? The armor's song, a hymnal of war. It knows what you are now, what you've become. The last traces of humanity burning away. Like morning frost, the targeting system activates. Suddenly, every living thing in the chamber appears as a potential threat. The tech marine, the servitors, even the rats in the walls, all marked for death. This is what you are now. A weapon wearing human skin, a killer wrapped in holy steel. The boy who ran from wolves is gone. In his place stands something that would make those wolves flee in terror. You take your first step. The armor responds like liquid lightning. Perfect, deadly, beautiful. But in the reflection of your visor, for just a moment, you see him. That terrified child. Still screaming, still running, still trapped inside this walking tomb. Today, we build our own armor. Digital shields, corporate uniforms, professional personas. We tell ourselves we're protecting something precious inside. But what if we're just building prettier prisons? Every notification is a neural link. Every screen, a targeting system painting our world in metrics and engagement. The screaming has stopped. Brother Matthias stands in the chapel mirror, studying the reflection that no longer belongs to him. 2 meters of gene-forged flesh, ceramic bones that could crush tank armor, a heart that beats with the rhythm of war itself. The boy who entered these halls 10 years ago is dead. His new memories feel ancient, downloaded directly from the chapter's gene seed. He remembers battles he never fought, honors he never earned. The accumulated trauma of 1,000 warriors flows through his enhanced neural pathways like poison through golden veins. The chaplain's voice echoes in the vaulted chamber. You are no longer human, brother. You are post-human, beyond human. The Emperor's own design made manifest. Matthias flexes fingers that could crack ceramite. His enhanced senses detect the fear sweat of the human serfs who tend the chapel. They worship him now, These mortals who once stood as his equals now cower before his engineered perfection. The irony tastes like copper on his gene-modified tongue. "Tell me, brother," the chaplain continues, his skull helm gleaming in candlelight. "What do you remember of your former life?" Matthias searches his altered mind. Fragments surface like debris from a shipwreck, a mother's face already fading, the warmth of natural sunlight on unarmored skin, the simple joy of hunger satisfied by common food. All of it feels like someone else's dream. "Nothing of consequence, chaplain." The lie comes, easily, too easily. The chaplain nods, satisfied. Good. The weak flesh has been purged. Only the Emperor's will remains. But in the depths of his enhanced consciousness, Matthias holds tight to one last human memory, a promise made to a dying friend in the recruitment trials, a vow to remember who they were before the transformation. The chapter will never know. He kneels before the golden Aquila, ceramite knees striking stone with the sound of a judge's gavel. Around him, 100 other post-human warriors mirror his genuflection. Each one a masterpiece of biological engineering, each one a child who died so a weapon could be born, the Emperor's finest. In our world, we speak of military recruitment with pride, honor, duty, service. But what happens when the cost of that service is humanity itself? Every uniform carries a story. Every transformation leaves something behind. Subscribe if you dare to question what we sacrifice for our finest.